Tiger Town says, I think Geno is out of his prime. I think you guys should have traded up for JJ McCarthy or something. Maybe you guys will get a top 5 pick and draft Quinn Ewers or something. Who knows? I think we will be in the next year or two be looking at a quarterback of the future. Geno's not necessarily at a place where I think he's shown you he's out of his prime and his skill set, Tiger Town. I know you're kind of coming into this conversation a little bit downstream from where we've been at with it, where there's a lot of things with that old offense, as I mentioned, with the pass protection, the lack of running game ingenuity. There's a lot of stuff within the offense which just held it back and has held back Geno from being able, and any quarterback, frankly. You saw with Drew Lock when he went out there. He didn't perform particularly well either in this offense, and I don't think too many quarterbacks would have. Well, we'll see this year, especially when we get our offensive line in a better place, Tiger Town, but I think that when you look at a guy, for instance, with Jared Goff, and you want to look at a guy, Jared Goff, when you give him an offensive line versus not having an offensive line, he would turn into a shell of himself. Geno's not had an offensive line, and he's not turned into a shell of himself. He's played very strongly the past couple of years, actually. And so that he can play that well kind of in the storm says what happens when we can actually give this guy a little bit of sunlight? What happens with him there? And I don't think that that's a guy that's out of his prime at that point. I think that there's still some untapped potential within Geno. It just becomes about getting better supporting parts around him to get more out of him, like you guys have done in Detroit. Jared Goff is, to me, not one of the top quarterbacks in the sport, but you provide him a great supporting cast, and he can go out there and win you a Super Bowl. He can. But this is also a little bit getting into the depths, Tiger Town, at times on the outlook of the quarterback position and how much one's impacted by the supporting parts or the lack of supporting parts, or how much a guy just has a cape flowing in the wind and doing superhero stuff. Don says, excellent perspective on Geno versus Goff with the O-line versus O-line. Hell yeah. I think it's a big part of where I go to with the quarterback position. And I will admit on this, Don, that I'm a little bit of an unusual cat with this in the way I look at the quarterback position, because the view in the modern era is, and I'm not going to try to speak for our Lion fan in the chat. He may not view it this way, but I do encounter this a lot of the quarterback is the superhero. It's like every quarterback has like a superhero rating. And however high their rating is how much they can do for their team or how far they can take their team. In my opinion, it's more the supporting parts dictate the success of that quarterback. How's the offensive line? How's the scheme? How's the play calling? How are the skill position players on the outside? How's the defense he has on the other side of him? If he has a defense that's living on the football field like our Seahawks defense was last year, Don, I've mentioned this many times. If you go to the snap counts and you look at the snap counts defensively of the 49ers, for instance, versus the Seahawks played a collective game and a half more last year defensively by the number of snaps they were on the football field versus the 49ers. At a whole nother game and a half. Well, if my defense is on the field for 63, 64% of the game, it makes it harder for me offensively to be that productive, right? Another inhibiting factor. And I think you've got to layer all of this stuff in your view of the quarterback position and the play of the quarterback position rather than just the simplistic superhero outlook of it. But I do seem to encounter a lot of times people just want to draw down to the superhero thing. Get your guy. Everybody wants the view of going and finding their guy that's going to be the Tom Brady or the Mahomes or, this guy that'll be the superhero guy that just can do it all and save the day for you all on his own. And that's hard to find, and that's really rare to see in the game of the NFL. When it comes to Geno, I've pointed to many different aspects that we can point to here. The defense spending a game and a half extra on the football field, shrinking down the time the offense can be on the field. This is backed up, Don, by the fact that you had the 8th most efficient offense in football. Offense wasn't a problem last year. Offense was good last year. Very efficient last year. They just couldn't get on the field because the defense was living on the football field. 28th in pass protection. A running game that stays living in the A and the B gap and refuses to run outside. No fly sweeps. The targeting of the middle of the field. I know I wear people out with this one, Don, but you targeted the middle of the field at the 32nd rate in the NFL. It's one thing to be in kind of the 20s. It's another thing to be the dead last team in the NFL at targeting the middle of the field. And maybe I'm a simple man in this way, but if my offense is the 32nd team in the NFL at targeting the middle of the field, that would seem to be purposeful, number one. And number two, that would seem to make playing the quarterback position just a little bit harder. It would seem like that to me. I could be off on that, but that would appear to be the case to me on that. So it comes back to all those things. They all impact the QB position. Guy like Goff, grade A offensive line in front of him. A defense which hasn't been particularly good, but a great play caller, a great offensive scheme, a good run game to operate off of. Just enough playmakers on the outside for his success with that. Take that offensive line away from Goff. you'll get a much more diminished Goff.